The secret to longevity, Ram Dass nailed forever ago when he said the future revolves around we will live longer, have more energy, and be healthier.
Who are you and what the hell are you doing here?
I'm Shawn Wells. I'm a biochemist and a supplement formulator. I'm known as the world's greatest formulator. I've formulated over 1,100 products and patented 40 unique ingredients.
So it sounds like you're an ingredientologist.
That's exactly it.
That's awesome. So I feel like you're massive in every space. We can talk about longevity. Yesterday I was telling you how much I loved your new drink. All this other stuff. If we were dying tomorrow, what 3 supplements would you take today, and why are most people wasting money on the rest of them?
Dihydroberberine. It's a GLP-1 agonist. It increases AMP kinase, reduces inflammation, improves dyslipidemia, obviously improves blood sugar. It's about 5 times more bioavailable than regular berberine without the GI distress. About 93% of the population is metabolically dysfunctional. That's number 1, because that's heading towards faster biological aging and almost all disease. Next up would be dileucine. It is the new gold standard in muscle protein synthesis, which means creating more muscle, which means being anabolic. As we age, we lose muscle. Sarcopenia. Muscle is extremely important to aging well. Grip strength is probably the number 1 predictor of healthy aging. What are we also seeing with GLP-1s? A massive amount of muscle loss, a disproportionate amount. So I love dileucine. Next up would be ergothioneine, an ingredient that I've worked on to bring to market that is potentially the next new vitamin. Dr. Bruce Ames calls it the longevity vitamin. It has a unique transporter system for your in your body called the ETT, the ergothioneine transporter. Also, it's known as the OCTN1. But a unique transporter in your body for this nutrient tells you how important evolutionarily this ingredient is. You have a transporter for one ingredient, and you've probably never heard of it, and you don't make it in your body. You can only get it through certain mushrooms, certain beans, and organ meats, and we get very little of it. And when we look at the populations that are living the longest, it's a straight line correlation to how much ergothioneine they're consuming. So this protects the mitochondria, which means protects cellular energy. We are in a state of insufficient cellular energy as a country. ICE is the acronym, and it now is a diagnosis. And when we don't have enough ATP, we can't run the system. And so we're seeing with ergothioneine, it's protecting the heart and the brain because those are the most energy dependent. So it's a very exciting ingredient.
So you've formulated thousands of supplements. Which one is the best one you've ever made?
Well, I just talked about a couple, but probably the most exciting for me, because I hate caffeine, about 60% of the population is a slow metabolizer of caffeine, CYP1A2. That means that most of us get more side effects than benefits from caffeine, and I'm one of those people. It can be up to days later when you're clearing caffeine out of your system. So for me, paraxanthine, this metabolite of caffeine, is so clean. I love this. I can't go a day without it. It feels like I'm on the limitless pill. It's truly all the benefits you dreamed up of with caffeine, with none of the crash, the anxiety, the brain fog, the sleep disruption. Super clean.
No side effects.
Super clean, yeah.
And that's what you gave me yesterday?
Yep.
I can attest to it. What's one biohacking trend you secretly think is a scam?
One biohacking trend I
feel like you got it.
Yeah, I think one biohacking trend is quantum everything. I'm not saying that there isn't a potential around quantum, but it's sort of like you slap AI on it and people want it and they don't even know what it is and it sounds better. It's the same with quantum right now. It just feels like I can slap the word quantum on something and then I don't have to really explain the science and people want it.
I still can't figure out what the quantum is. And I've had guys in front of me 10 times already. Do you believe we've already unlocked the secret to 120 years old? And if so, is Big Pharma hiding it?
I do. I do think we have the secret. One, there are people in these blue zones that are super centenarians, that are living past 110, that aren't doing peptides, that aren't doing stem cells, that aren't doing keto. They're just supported by community and have purpose and are moving their body and are eating non-Franken food. But if you go beyond that, there's a few biohacks that are incredibly powerful. Probably the most important one that I've seen, the most impactful to reverse telomere shortening, is hyperbaric chambers. And I believe if you are doing 30 minutes to an hour several times a week, I do believe that's possible. There is some really interesting data there. Maybe some other things have promise, like the photobiomodulation, in particular red light, possibly hydrogen water if used consistently, or deuterium depleted water if used consistently. These are some interesting ones, but definitely hyperbaric has incredible data.
So did Shawn Wells just tell me if you live like the blue zone and do hyperbaric, you could throw everything else out the window?
I think so. You know, I think there's actually a stress that comes with the amount of biohacking that people are doing. When I have to take 30 needles a day, 60 capsules a day, I'm doing all these devices, and now it's like, 1:30 in the afternoon and I've gotten no work done, and I haven't spent any time with my friends, family, children, etc. What are we doing? That's not the secret to longevity. The secret to longevity, Ram Dass nailed forever ago when he said, be here now. The idea of being present, of being mindful, there's an eternity in every second that passes. He's saying you can live forever if you're just here now. If you're always thinking about what's next, what meeting you have, what pill you have to take, what injection you have to do, what's coming, oh, I'm aging, like what am I going to look like in 10 years? Will I look good in this bikini or in this swimsuit? Or you're never present. There's anxiety in the future, there's guilt in the past, and we're never present. If we could just be present, we could live forever.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's really important to hear that in this space from thought leaders like yourself.
Yeah.
You constantly talk about mitochondrial health. Are mitochondria the new gut microbiome or just another fad?
It is. No, I believe that mito is the next keto. We're going to hear the word mito attached to all kinds of things. You're starting to see it in the biohacking space, but I think mito will become mainstream. Why? Because we are in a state of insufficient cellular energy, because there is an energy shortfall, an ATP shortfall, which leads to, when you have mitochondrial dysfunction, you have metabolic dysfunction, which leads to faster biological aging and nearly all diseases. So if we can solve the mitochondrial issue, if we can make better mitochondria and we can have more mitochondria, mitochondrial biogenesis, we will live longer, have more energy, and be healthier. We are going to start exploring the importance of mitochondria, for sure.
If someone's not using exogenous ketones, are they serious about anti-aging?
Exogenous ketones, I do believe, are a great signaling tool, especially if you're not going to do the ketogenic diet. And we have seen that ketones are signaling the body. Of course, they're a substrate, a fuel source, just like glucose, but they're also a signal. That means you're fasting, which stimulates autophagy, that cellular cleanup, which stimulates mitophagy, the cleanup of the mitochondria, the energy powerhouse of the cell. It's also going to be anti-cancer and a number of other things that we associate with getting rid of these zombie cells, senescent cells, of cleaning up the body, of restoring the body. So ketones are powerful beyond just being a fuel source. I do think more research needs to be done, but it's certainly very promising.
So are there any anti-aging supplements out there that are actually accelerating aging?
Any metabolic enhancing ingredients are essentially aging you a little faster.
Could you give an example of something?
So something like green tea, caffeine, some of these ingredients that have been shown to be metabolically stimulating, increase thermogenesis, to some degree, because they're speeding up the metabolism, are making you age faster. But you could potentially counteract that with some things like these glutathione supplements or glutathione precursors, other antioxidants, polyphenols, all the things we know that are anti-aging. But it's a great question. I don't think there's a conclusive answer. When we look at rodent models and studies, we see a much more dramatic effect on metabolism and aging with a number of these pharmaceuticals and supplements. And it's markedly less potent when we look at human models.
So as we age, our metabolism slows down. Does that mean we're aging slower?
Yes, I would argue that is true.
Why do I feel like I'm aging faster then?
No. Well, there's actually, what they've shown is there's about 3 points in your life that you have aging leaps. It's obviously through puberty, and then around your 40s, and then around your 60s, you have these leaps forward, and it's just part of life. They're just stages of life that
I
we
didn't
have
mind the
these
first
leaps.
one. The second one, I'm having a hard time coping with.
Agreed.
What's more powerful for longevity? They talk about rapamycin increasing, longevity, NAD boosters, or just like, should I just fast till I hallucinate or what?
It's a great question because like some things like rapamycin are inhibiting protein synthesis. And what did I say earlier? Something like dileucine that's potently increasing muscle protein synthesis is important. So what does that mean? If we know that muscle and strength is really important as we age, and being too much in protein synthesis is potentially a bad thing, what does that mean? What do we do? And then, like you're saying about fasting, this is where I think that the future revolves around macronutrient cycling and fasting and feasting. This is probably the best way for aging. Is not the grazing idea, the 6 to 8 small meals we were told to do years ago. It's probably going a day or two, maybe without eating, and then eating tons of calories similar to a lion. I don't know. There's obviously bio-individuality, and certainly what might be right for the male physiology might not be right for the female physiology that's trying to optimize for fertility or maintaining a pregnancy. That could be very different. So yeah, it's a really interesting question. But I think going back to that idea of rapamycin, we might want to boost muscle protein synthesis as high as possible and then get on rapamycin. And then we might want to increase protein as much as possible and then decrease protein and have protein fasting. So this idea of caloric and protein fasting and feasting might be the way to do it.
It's interesting you say that because, I look at vegans and, they all look really fucking old to me.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe someone says, okay, they're doing it wrong, this and that, but I know guys that are doing it right. And they're living long lives that, I think they're figuring it out. But I feel like muscle mass is a new currency. And like, are all vegans fucked or like, what's the story here?
Veganism is complicated. I think it's very doable, but actually going back to what we were just talking about with muscle protein synthesis, the proteins they're getting are not optimized for muscle protein synthesis. One, a lot of the vegan sources tend to be lower in protein, certainly than animal sources. But two, they're much lower in leucine, which is the key trigger, the amino acid that triggers muscle protein synthesis. And that's why I've worked on dileucine as kind of being the new gold standard for muscle protein synthesis. But if I was to take a vegan protein, I would certainly add leucine or dileucine to it to enhance its anabolic signaling effect. And I think that's the shortfall with vegan diets, is they're just not getting enough protein and they're not getting enough leucine in particular.
So what's the optimal diet?
That's a great question. I think to this point, we're seeing with the populational data we have is something along the lines of a Mediterranean diet, potentially a ketogenic diet, but we don't have it on a epidemiologic scale, like really to the degree which we need. So I think saying the Mediterranean diet, certainly whole foods, avoiding things like glyphosates, GMOs, eating organic, having olive oil that's not processed, first press kind of thing.
What about lectins?
Lectins, that's a good question. I think avoiding things like lectins, phytates, oxalates, things like that tend to be inflammatory triggers. That's going to be dependent on the person, but in general, I think potentially avoiding those.
Okay, so now you said inflammatory. If you said inflammation is the root of all aging, so why isn't everybody on high-dose fish oil or curcumin 2.0?
I've worked on a curcumin 2.0, and it's called tetrahydrocurcumin, by the way. But inflammation isn't a bad thing. It just kind of goes back to the timing of like protein synthesis and maybe inhibiting and increasing. Same with inflammation. Like post-workout, inflammation's critical to signal muscle growth. Around disease status, it's critical to enhance the immune effect. So we don't want to just get rid of inflammation. The problem is chronic inflammation. Just like blood sugar is a good thing, insulin's a good thing. It's just chronic elevations of blood glucose, chronic elevations in insulin is a problem.
You're telling me that 60% of all Americans have chronic illness, chronic inflammation. I think that's the figure I've seen. So they're all fucked?
No, I don't think so. I do think GLP-1s are interesting. That's a whole rabbit hole we could go down, and I think there's a lot of side effects. But I do think potentially microdosing those could be interesting. Dihydroberberine is a dietary supplement that increases GLP-1, which may be a good way forward. Something like tetrahydrocurcumin that is a better metabolite of curcumin would be nice. Having ergothioneine, having the dileucine, like these are ingredients that are going to enhance your longevity as well as improve your body composition and likelihood of getting disease.
Cool. All right, rapid fire so we can wrap this up. GLP-1, insane or innovative?
Innovative and insane.
Taking methylene blue with psychedelics?
Oof. Okay. I've never considered that, but yes.
Yeah? Okay. Spermidine as the next anti-aging Viagra?
It is a autophagy and mitophagy mimic, fasting mimic. So I do like the ingredient, yes.
Okay. Injecting peptides at home?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah?
I'm all for that.
All right. Red light therapy, maybe on your genitals or anything like that, is like the next biohack?
I do like that. There are transient levels of testosterone that have been seen to increase reduction in inflammation. That skin, in particular around the testes, is very thin and would be probably the best place to absorb photobiomodulation.
Great. Fasting 7+ days a month?
Maybe for a man, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.